free your mind.
This reality is not what it seems. If you think that all you see around you is actually all that exists, then this video is going to absolutely blow the top of your head right off. Let's start with a quote. Edgar Allan Poe. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Morality Matters, and today's discussion is on consciousness. One of the most important things that we must understand if we really want to flourish in our own lives and actually get out of the situation that we are in within all of humanity. So, other than the quote that we just started with, I've got a clip for you. This clip basically summarizes everything that you really need to know in a nutshell about the hidden force that governs all of this reality. The most important thing we must understand is consciousness.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop. Let me out. Let me out. I want out.
So with that video alone, it basically encapsulates everything that I need to talk about in totality. That's the crucial thing, that if everyone understood on this place, then we would be in a very good starting point to really be able to improve the society that we live in. Because this, in fact, is a matrix. Think of what you want about the film. It's obviously a film, it's partly fiction, but it moreover is actually basically a documentary. Because this reality is, in fact, a matrix. That, of course, needs great explanation and defining, and there'll be a future episode on the Matrix in of itself, in its totality, because that's just way too big of a conversation right now. But the point is, you must understand that everything that you thought about this reality is a lie. Everything that you think is real around you, everything that you touch and see, if you think that that's all that there actually is and that it's just the 3D world and nothing else, and when you die it's just lights out, game over, you're in for a rude awakening, my friend. Because we do in fact live in a matrix, in a simulation, and this is all run and based upon consciousness. This consciousness that I speak of, that I'm about to get into, is the crucial point of allowing us to expand our minds and ultimately become enlightened. Because consciousness is the foundation that everything stands upon, and it's the key to freeing our minds. So, what is consciousness? People will give you all sorts of definitions, and they'll get into all sorts of abstract concepts and talking about spirit and the 5D, and of course many things like that can link into it. But without getting all new agey on you, consciousness is simply awareness. It is pattern recognition. It is the ability to assign and discern meaning on the earth and within the realm of the self. Animals can relate to this because, of course, studies even show animals have certain pattern recognition skills. They have abilities to find meaning, things like that. So they're not just inanimate objects. Even the word animal even comes from Latin animus, meaning spirit. So they definitely have some form of consciousness. Same with plants. Same with, as you'll find out, everything on this planet. Even the desk that is in front of me, even the microphone right here. It's all a form, just in different levels, of consciousness. Because all you see and all you are, as above, so below, everything is consciousness. It is the expression of the mind of the creator. And in fact, the creator itself, although it's many things, and that's not for me to tell you, the creator is consciousness. Its language, its expressions are consciousness. And we, especially with our human mind and our spirit, is the pinnacle of this. And that's why it's so crucial to understand, because you cannot truly know who you are until you understand the importance and the definition and the workings of consciousness. So it's not a thought. It's not a, like I say, abstract, woo-woo, sort of up in the air, hippie concept. It is simply the field in which thoughts actually arise. It is energy and spirit. And like I say, it reflects in our ability to recognize patterns, find meaning, and simply have awareness. If something has awareness in many different forms, and we may not even be able to understand if some things have awareness, we can get very abstract. We could talk about if this table has awareness, different levels to it. But the point is, everything is an expression of consciousness, just in different levels. And we, like I say, are the pinnacle of this because we are able to further look into our own consciousness and develop it. As I spoke about even in the first episode, if we are only living for our base desires, our consciousness, especially in fear and cowardice, consciousness is at the very lowest level. We are going to be contracted and squeezed and almost completely eradicated from all of our consciousness, except for the inherent consciousness of life itself that we have. We want to move up the path and expand and grow in consciousness. Learn and grow in consciousness. That's our ultimate mission on this planet. And so consciousness is expressed in many ways. It comes in many forms. And in a sense, everything that you see is consciousness, especially when you deeply understand the principle and law of as above, so below. This is a profound study, and I can only whet the appetite for you understanding this. It's almost a lifelong journey to really personally understand what consciousness is. And that's your mission, is to constantly work with and try and expand upon this consciousness. And for as long as we don't, and as long as we just shun it aside and think it's for the hippies and the new agers and maybe the religious people, even on a very small level, as long as we think that way, we're not going to be able to grow. We're not going to be able to truly improve. We can only, at the very, very most, put the bandages on the cuts that we have in society and in our own person. Well, if you want to get scientific about this, you can simply look at quantum mechanics. And again, this is a huge topic, which I'm not going to get deeply into because I would just be butchering it. And who am I to get into such incredible detail? There's much smarter people than me out there that talk of this sort of stuff. So you can look into it for yourself. But if you simply understand just on its foundations, quantum mechanics, the observer effect, and most well known, the double slit experiment. I'll insert a clip here that actually explains this experiment, and ultimately it is an experiment that allows us to conclude that our consciousness and focus and observation on the world actually has an effect and can actually change that. And of course we can bring about certain assumptions and certain links to this. When we understand the observer effect and quantum mechanics, we are able to realize that our observation, our minds, all has an effect on consciousness, and we can measure this, and there are incredible different workings. It's not just simply the 3D, like I say.
The infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. It was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange netherworld of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
Quantum mechanics is the way that science allows us to really measure consciousness and understand it as well. So and that's just especially for the methods of observation alone. But the only way to truly see and understand and appreciate and grow in consciousness is to balance the brain. I'll have a whole episode on this, on the true understanding and ability to work on our brains, because once again, huge topic. This would be hours long if I was to start getting into the types of the different modalities of the brain. And once again, it will just be a quite rudimentary level, but that's all you need to start with. Something's better than nothing. And so if we have a balanced, united, holistic brain, then we are able to bring our thoughts, emotions, and actions together and unify our levels and expressions of consciousness. And then, and only then, can we start working on and becoming the true master of our own lives, and then, at scale, the true master of this planet. The only way to really flourish and bring as close to a sort of utopia, I guess you could say, the only way to really achieve the things that we need and want is by uniting the brain. So as that video at the start helped us understand, there is a true nature of reality, and this is different to our perception. Everything that you see here and around you, it exists, sure, on some level, but it's not all that exists. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So we think, so we feel, so we act, and this all has an expression and a consequence out in the world. Once again, the observer effect, if you want to get scientific about this, can help us understand this. The problem is, we mistake appearances for truth. We all know that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, we just take it for granted and understand that it's working on all levels. The radio, if I was to turn on a radio right now, it would guarantee to work, especially as long as I'm not under a tunnel. Just because we don't see the waves of these things, we can't see Wi-Fi fields actually directly coming out upon us. We can't see them, but we absolutely know that they exist. We can only see the effects of them, and we have to understand that there is a different layer and different levels of reality that we can't see, but most certainly exist. In fact, I'm going to argue when we get into the more spiritual levels of this, the real thing that truly exists, more than this reality, is consciousness. That is the true nature of reality. And this is because we as humans, through our tiny lenses in our eyes and our very complex, of course, brains, but quite limited brains, at least on this level, we only see a tiny fraction of what actually exists, of the electromagnetic spectrum. If you were to look up a graph, you would see that we only actually perceive less than a percentage, about 0.005% of 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see visible light only. We are very limited in what we can actually see on this earth. And then outside of this perspective, there is incredible, vast amounts of information and detail and levels of things and dimensions that exist beyond all of this. We can do certain things to sort of tap into these, or at least understand them. You know, you could talk about psychedelics, you could talk about certain types of meditation, or introspection, things like that, out-of-body experiences, astral projection. We can do things like that can sort of help us tap in and realise that there are definitely certain things that can be seen and tapped into when we lift the veil of our ordinary, very low-level perception. And only when we truly work towards understanding the impact and the omnipresent nature of consciousness and the dimensions that exist beyond this realm, only then can we really manifest and understand ourselves and improve and grow. This is true spirituality, the true aim of what religion should help us do, instead of holding us back to a dogmatic belief system. Instead, we can understand the true nature that is all that is consciousness. When we understand that, we can start working with it. We can really use the law of attraction then. We can really start becoming a spiritual, enlightened being. And so, therefore, if you haven't already gathered, Everything that you were told was a lie. Education, media, religion, government, schooling especially, they all portray a false image of the world and the self. Some are more accurate than others. Some can still be helpful, and we should obviously nitpick the positives and the true parts out of them, because everything has to have a couple sprinkles of truth. Otherwise, they're just complete nonsense. Our job is to discern those parts that are right, but then especially in the man-made systems, schooling especially in this day and age, they are so far off of the path that allow us to develop and really harness the gifts that you can see present in children, the curiosity and the imagination and the power that children have. That is almost completely beaten out of them in many different ways, but ultimately they are indoctrinated to see themselves as small, weak, separate, sinful, meaningless, incapable, just another cog in the machine, just another rat in the race, just another ant on the farm, a cow going toward the slaughterhouse. They completely limit your perception, and it's only a very, very small few that will say, screw that. And then it's even a very small fewer out of those people that will actually do something good and do something incredible. The mavericks of our time, the top artists, the top philosophers, that's for those people. And then the people that don't do that, they've broken out the system, they hit the streets, they become gangsters, they do all this criminal stuff, and they understand that the schooling system sucks and that there's problems with the world. But instead of harnessing their true power, they go in the complete opposite direction. And so my point is, 9.9 out of 10 people will fall for the trap of seeing just little old me, just me and my job, me and my social status, me and my friends and family, that's all that matters, me and my money. When really, we need to all take a step back and remember who we are and connect back to who we once were before society told us we were something else. And as you'll gradually see throughout my work, there are incredible amounts of ways that we are limited in our perception, from the food, from the systems, from worldviews, from religion. All of these things stop us from really remembering who we were, who we are, and understanding the incredible holistic nature of everything that we truly are. Everyone lives in their little box life. They live in a box, they stare at the box, they eat out of a box, they work in a box. This is the trap that they all fall for. And for as long as humanity stays in this place and just is content in that mud, then we will continue to get more of the same. And the truth is, you are a conscious being. You are everything that is, was, ever has been, ever will be, experiencing itself infinitely. That is what you truly are. You are spirit and the mind of God incarnate. You are here to do incredible things. You are here to fulfill your purpose and realize your purpose, to remember who you truly are and walk the path that you need to walk. And instead of living little old me, I can't do that, or constantly trying to do better and then falling right back into the old habits or worse, you have to remember who you are, who you really are, and then you can become enlightened. And so, the foundation of all reality is consciousness. It is spirit, it is energy, and consciousness isn't in reality, it is reality. Everything you see, like I say, is energy. Energy is intelligent. You are intelligent. The whole world is intelligent. The creator of the universe is the purest form of intelligence, and that trickles down into everything, from objects to people to animals to whole planets, galaxies, everything. It's all just different forms and expressions and wavelengths of consciousness. So as I've said a few times now, reality is not just 3D. It's not just all we see here and then when we die, bang, lights out, eternal nothingness. It is multidimensional. It is spiritual, it is energetic, it is states of consciousness, it has many dimensions, it is layered, but also at the same time, it's all one and the same. when you really get a high spiritual understanding, there will be a point of which when you understand everything is connected. We are all one. There is no separation. There is no difference. We are all just different forms of the same energy and spirit, branched off in many different ways, and some recognize that and some do not. We can play around with different techniques to allow us to, just for a brief moment of time, in the expansive way that it is, because you can spend years trying to decode the experiences that you have, but dreams, astral projections, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, things like this can really help us understand just the incredible, infinite vastness that really exists out there. And we can't know it all. You can never expect to say, I know everything that's going on here and there, and here and no further. The true spiritual path is to realize how little you know, but nonetheless realize that there is stuff to know, and there is stuff outside of our experience that is incredible. And so quite honestly, it's likely that there are almost infinite planes, dimensions, and layers of reality. Once again, it's for you to work on and try and suss that out and figure it out for yourself, but it all vibrates at different frequencies, and yet again, it is all one and the same. It is all interconnected, and as you'll see in a future episode, it's all an expression of mind. You can use psychedelics, I'm not advocating any illegal activity here, but things like DMT or high psilocybin doses will certainly help you understand, and just for a brief moment of time, lift you up, lift the veil open, and make you see, wow, there is expansive amounts of potential and beauty and creativity out in these planes, just beyond this tiny little dense fraction of what we actually see. If you want to get a right now understanding of what this might look like, search up the artwork of Alex Gray. It's incredible and profound that someone could actually try and put these incredible, indescribable experiences down into pieces of artwork, and he does a very good job of it. There are many people that do the same, and it's all beautiful. Or even just listen to people that have had ayahuasca experiences or DMT experiences or high psilocybin, things like that. They will tell you very similar, correlating things, that there is an infinite amount of potential and universe, energy, spirit, consciousness that exists out there. People like to throw around the quote, and unfortunately it's become a bit of a cliche, but we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are, in our true selves, a orb of light in a different dimension, and in this brief amount of time that we are incarnated into our bodies right now, we are wearing a VR headset. It is limiting our perception. There is still stuff here to do. Nonetheless, it's not less important, it's just different. We are here for a very brief time. We are consciousness and God experiencing itself. And if you want to understand the potential of our perception, allowing us to see different things, and that if you want to understand deeper that if your perception is stuck in one way, that you only think it's a certain thing, just look at optical illusions. Something like this will just immediately show you, when you look at something, it can appear one way, it can indefinitely appear one way, and you can insist that it is that way, but actually it's different. It's all about how you look at it. And in fact, truth and fact and reality is a line, a straight line. It does not change. It is single. And yet our perceptions, they differ. It is a wavelength, up and down, and it's our job and our duty and our ability to align the two to a line and bring them closer and closer, so that we have our truth and perception and they are moving perfectly aligned. And when we do that, that is the recipe to truly grow as a being. And so when you understand the potential and the beauty of all of this consciousness, it very quickly allows you to understand and comprehend and understand, at least by chance alone, the potential of aliens, otherworldly life, interdimensional beings, life beyond Earth, things like that. You can very quickly start understanding and sympathizing with those sort of ideas instead of just brushing it off in a left-brained, overly skeptical way. It allows you to understand if there are certain things that we can't see, Wi-Fi fields alone, if there are certain things that we can't see that we know exist, who's to say that there aren't other beings, other life forms, ghosts perhaps, paranormal things that can transform in and out of these realms, or perhaps just live on different planets alone. I would insist that you would be quite a fool, quite a naive, arrogant person to think that we're the only life that actually exists in this universe. We cannot imagine the incredible potential and infinite amount of life that could exist out there, not only up in different planets, but also within different dimensions. Because as we know now, there are different dimensions that exist. All it takes is for these beings to have different abilities, and then we can hop in and out. And of course, I'm not going to get into this in the episode because some people will immediately shut it off. That's for a future episode. But when we understand the potential of these sort of interdimensional workings, we can understand the very plausible potential of there being things like reptilians, the greys, things like that, shape-shifting people. Because when we understand it's all just different, it's all just a simulation, a holographic holodeck that allows us to jump in and out between. And obviously, we can't, at least in this lifetime, do that, but it doesn't mean other people can't. If there are different forms of consciousness out there that are perhaps higher than ours, who's to say that they can't hop in and out? And who's to say that they aren't of a evil variety? That's for a different episode, and there's many different researchers that deeply go into this, David Icke for one, and as much ridicule and amount of humour surrounds them, and as much as people want to laugh, it's a very serious and very credible study. And so when you really understand the importance and the omnipresence of consciousness, it allows you to stop laughing at the idea of UFOs, crop circles, these kind of things. It makes you take a step back and think, maybe there's some potential to that, because we are not all that exists out in this planet. There's a lot more going on. And so beyond us being consciousness and us being just brains and human vessels for this spirit, we need to understand true human nature. This is essential, and it's one of the most tight-kept secrets of the ruling class of this world. They do not want us to understand the existence and the fact, the simplicity of human nature. They want us to think it's being animalistic and survival of the fittest and only I matter and step on anyone else, dog eat dog. This is a lie. This might apply to lower forms of consciousness in the jungle, perhaps. But with us, human nature, beyond certain predispositions with things like genes, which even then, if you understand epigenetics with the works of Bruce Lipton, people like that, even those things are allowed to be worked on, and they're not just the be-all and end-all deterministic factors. Real human nature is programmability. Humans are programmable via our environment. Repetition, belief, socialization, these things create and mold us. They are the paint on the blank canvas that we are born as. And beyond this, we are a biological computer. We are not simply just computers, we are biological computers. We are like a computer, especially the human brain and the human mind. This is formatted through childhood, through our formative years. We are given certain belief systems, trauma, dogma, perhaps, some more than others, but ultimately this is all imposed with culture, religion, belief, schooling. We are once again put down into a little box, into mini me. I can't do so much I can only do so much in this lifetime because I'm just a little me. I'm only here to do my job and go and die, and that's it. You're so much more than this, and you can become anyone and anything that you decide to become, because we are all programmable. And as much as some have had it much worse, especially with trauma and abuse in a childhood, it's all workable. And perhaps part of our job is to work on that and fix it. And so the point is, the thing that allows us to change this and change ourselves is conscious choice, willpower, and most importantly, the alignment and the understanding of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. The key 3 expressions of consciousness. So we think, so we feel, so we act. And for as long as these are all out of whack, or they are not in alignment, or they are based upon harmful, damaging things, for as long as that is the case, we are going to be walking around confused, cowardly, and all of the other vices are going to be followed from that. We are not going to be able to act correctly. As I say, we are biological computers. If you get a computer and you have all of its coding as junk, as poorly written nonsense, you are not, by law, going to be able to get an outcome that is anything good, anything orderly. It is going to be a jumbled mess as an output, if anything. And therefore, similarly, if our coding and programming from a child up to adulthood, if any of that is flawed and junk on whatever level it takes, and especially, therefore, our thoughts, emotions, and actions, if they are based on nonsense and based in confusion or just pure junk, if that's the case and they do not align with each other so that you have that perfect flow of I think something, I feel the certain way, and then I act upon it. If that is not the case, you are going to be acting with a very small amount of what your potential really is. We can reprogram ourselves, and we can use the internal antivirus that we all have within ourselves. And so true human nature is not purely evil, it's not purely good. If anything, it is neutral. It is what we make of it. It is what especially the first 7 years of our life, is key in programming this person that we become. We are malleable. We are pure balls of potential. As I've said a few times, we can create a paradise on this earth, or we can create an absolute slave planet. It's all about our free will. It's all about our programming. Input, processing, output. This is how the human works. And if you have malware in the human computer, then the output is going to reflect that, guaranteed, just like a computer. So if you work on yourself and you debug and you use this internal antivirus like I speak of, and it takes time, if you do this, that is the way to truly heal ourselves. We don't exactly need therapy or certain antidepressants, things like that. They can certainly help in some cases, in extreme cases, but we are able to work on these things ourselves. And this is the true path. This is the way of the moral master. And so, like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. We must do the shadow work. We must look within and look to the past of what's really happened. Not live there, not become just a victim. Woe is me, I can't do anything, can't change anything, or depend on something else to numb that out or change it for us. We have to look within, do the work, do many different of the methods that are out there, which is for another episode. Work on these things, and then we can really, really grow. And so, as I speak of the thought, emotion, action, these are also reflected in the vessels that we are gifted with: the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where all natural law takes form. If we have a real understanding of the mind, the body, and the spirit, and then we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with those things, and we act as one, unified, especially with a balanced left and right brain hemisphere, with the 3 different cortexes and the 3 different parts of our brain. If we are unified and we become one, then only then can we become this being of light that you see in all of these spiritual pictures, because that is a reality. It doesn't have to be some new age nonsense. We are able to become truly great. And so finally, I'll leave you with this. You have the choice in every action every opportunity, every single thing from the moment you wake up and the moment you go to sleep, you have the ability to either live in lower, nonsensical, base consciousness or live for pure, higher consciousness. You can be completely fear-based, all reactive, tribal, fragmented, divided, confused, chaotic, ignorant. You can be all of those things and just live for your resources and for maybe your immediate friends and family. You can do those things, which of course some of them need to be covered first on the hierarchy of needs. We have to cover those first, but it's not to be lived for. We need self-actualization. So you can either live for and in lower consciousness, in this contracted small version of myself, or you can really work on the path of going towards higher consciousness, pure awareness, unity consciousness, holistic consciousness. You can be compassionate. This is the key. Compassion. Care for what is right and what is necessary and what is good. And then ultimately, you will recognize and work for and appreciate your sovereignty. Because whether you like it or not, whether you agree or not, we are all sovereigns. We own ourselves and we have incredible potential. It's all based upon, are you going to live for it? Are you going to understand it and work for it? Or are you going to let someone else dictate your life for you and let another external false master be the owner of your body? Are you going to be the slave or are you going to be the sovereign? That is the choice. That is the question. And the best way to visualize this is just like the Egyptians said. When you die, Maat, the goddess of truth and wisdom, would take her feather off of her headpiece, place it on the scales, and on the other side of the scales would be your heart. And the choice is, are you going to live with that heart that is lighter than a feather, or is it going to be heavy and dense and low? And I don't even need to explain. I think we can all understand nothing good is going to come about if that heart is heavier than the feather. You must live at all times realizing it's all consciousness. I need a light heart. I need compassion. I need care. I need to aspire to grow in consciousness and eventually help others do the same. Only then can we truly become who we are meant to become. Consciousness expresses through what you think, feel, and do. And only then, when they are aligned, with truth and love especially, aligned within each other and aligned with what is right and what is love, true agape love, then and only then can you stop being a pawn in someone else's game, someone else's illusion. Because you, my friends, are a sovereign being that is capable of anything. You are everything that has been, is, and ever will be. You are an expression of the mind of God experiencing itself. And therefore, the question is, will you take the blue pill, wake up in your bed, and forget all of this, and go back to the nonsensical rat race nonsense that someone else dictates your reality? Going to choose that? Or are you going to take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes? That is the choice. And we all know there never really is a choice. There's only one answer. My friends, I hope you can see the incredible value that understanding consciousness allows you to have. This has been Morality Matters. I know this has been quite a hefty one today, quite a all over the place one, but the point remains simple and elegant. Understand consciousness, align our thoughts, emotions and actions, live in true love and work towards the development of your spiritual conscious self, and only then can you really grow and become the person you must become. This has been Morality Matters. I'll see you next time.